Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Lightning crashed through my illusions when I saw her with him. Midnight phone calls suddenly made perfect, horrifying sense. I never thought my life could collapse so fast. They say revenge is best served cold. I chose it blazing hot. His smirk sparked a fury I refused to contain. What she called freedom, I labeled betrayal. Every lie fueled the cruel plan lurking in my mind. No one steals my future without paying the price. Toby's death left a void that twisted my anger further. I rose from heartbreak, forging a savage payback. Now, witness the havoc I unleashed to claim justice. It was a tough Friday at work. One of the machines in the factory broke down, and I spent most of the day with the engineering team trying to figure out what was wrong. We were all exhausted by the end. I own a printing company that I started on the north side of Sydney, Australia, and running it for the last 12 years has been tiring. When I got home that Friday evening, I parked my truck in the garage and leaned back in my seat for a moment. I was really tired and just wanted the day to be over. Being the owner of a printing company that makes various items can be demanding. At home, though, I was feeling a bit disconnected. My wife, Louise, who I had been married to for over 15 years, seemed distant lately. I thrive on warmth and affection, and I missed that connection with her. Louise enjoys spending quality time and having my full attention. I do my best to give her that, but it's hard when she seems so withdrawn and I have a busy job. Let me introduce myself. I'm Cameron, 42 years old, and I have 2 daughters with Louise. Our oldest, Carrie, is 18 and looks a lot like her mother did at that age. She's bright, determined, and knows what she wants. Carrie is in her 3rd year of university studying engineering and plans to work with me to design new printing machines once she graduates. It's impressive that she's reached this level at such a young age. You might notice that I mentioned being married for only 15 years, and that's because of our second daughter, Sarah. We were happy with Carrie, but we got married after finding out we were expecting Sarah. Sarah is our free-spirited child. She adjusts well, doesn't have strong opinions on much, and usually takes the easy route. She's as smart as her sister, but she shows it in her own way. At 15, she's very social and often spends her time with friends or on her phone. Both of our girls were out for the weekend. Sarah was with friends and Carrie was out with her boyfriend, Robbie. I expected them back Sunday afternoon, which meant Louise and I would have some time alone. I thought this might be a chance for us to talk about some of our recent challenges over drinks. I got out of my 2-year-old Ford Ranger, grabbed my bag, and walked into the kitchen. Louise wasn't around, so I poured myself a drink, put on some soothing music, and sat down. I looked at the walls, trying to shake off the day's worries. The machine was sort of working again, but had cost us at least $10,000 in lost revenue. I felt uneasy about not having a solution by next week. It was a significant amount of money for my team in Sydney. Suddenly, I heard the sound of heels clicking on the floor. My wife, Louise, entered the room and drew my attention. Louise is a bit older than me and has always seemed attractive. Even after giving birth to 2 children and being in her 40s, she managed to keep herself healthy thanks to regular workouts and good eating habits. Her large brown eyes remained captivating, and despite our recent challenges, she meant everything to me. Tonight, she wore a little black dress that suited her well, and had her hair neatly styled. With a full handbag, she placed it on the table and looked at me. "You look great, my love," I said, and she smiled back. I took a deep breath and a sip from my drink. "I'm sorry, Lou. It's been a long day, and I just don't have the energy to go out for dinner tonight," I explained, noticing her outfit closely. She smiled again, but this time there was a noticeable change in her expression, and I felt my mood sink. "That's okay, Cam," she said, her voice slightly wobbly. "I wasn't planning on you joining me." I looked at her in surprise. It was rare for us to go out separately, and even when she had occasional nights out with her friends, she typically didn't dress up like this. "You weren't?" I asked, curiosity in my tone, taking a large sip of my drink. "Then why are you dressed like it's a special occasion?" For a moment, Louise seemed unsure. "Cameron." She glanced down at her outfit, hesitating. "Are you leaving me?" I asked, a hint of disbelief in my voice as her expression shifted. "No, of course not, Cam." She reached toward me, but I instinctively moved back. "Now you're going to tell me it has nothing to do with us, and that you need this for yourself. You'll say you deserve it after being such a dedicated mother." I raised an eyebrow, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I looked at her large handbag resting on the table. "From your bag. It seems like you didn't plan to come home tonight. It feels like you're stepping away from our marriage without thinking about what it means for us." I expressed my worries, frustration creeping into my voice. "Cam," she started, looking at me with focus. This time I didn't interrupt. She took a moment, then spoke softly. "We both work so hard, and I know you're doing this for our family, but seeing Roger is just for a short time." "Roger, as in Roger Fellworth, the head legal counsel at your work? Roger Fellworth, who is married with 3 kids under 10, that Roger Fellworth?" I asked. For a moment, my wife didn't answer. The worry in her eyes showed that I already knew who she meant. It took her by surprise. She sighed again. "Yes, Cam, that Roger. He's been very helpful these last few months. Since you haven't been around, he's—" "I can't believe that," I responded sharply. "What?" Louise said, surprised by my sudden reaction. "You heard me. You're trying to explain what you're doing. Sure, we work a lot, but saying I haven't been here is misleading, and you know it. You're the one who has been pulling away. I've been trying to spend time with you for months, but you've been distant. Now I see why." I stood up suddenly, my chair scraping on the floor. "Cameron, I am not being unfaithful," she stammered. "Tonight, I mean this weekend, was meant to be special for us." She looked down, embarrassed. "Right, so you have plans with him, not just one night, but a whole weekend away from us." I glared at her for a moment before heading into the kitchen to pour another drink. I was worn out from work and needed something to help me relax. As I poured, Louise stood in the doorway of the kitchen. She was angry, openly showing her feelings for the first time. "Cameron, I am not unfaithful, but unlike you and your first love, Rose, I have never been with another man in my life. Roger says I'm not betraying you because I'm being honest about my feelings. It's only wrong if I hide them." "That's unfair, Lou. Bringing Rose into this is too much, and you know it." I almost growled at her, but at least she had the decency to turn away. "And you are completely mistaken, dear wife. It's betrayal if I don't accept it, and I cannot accept you spending time with another man like that. I assume your new friend is having a similar talk with his wife?" She stammered again. I don't know," while looking down at her shoes. I scoffed, finishing my drink, and then turned to look at Louise. Her face was full of emotions. Most likely he's not being honest about why he's away and will be hard to reach. I decided to change my approach. "Has he said anything about his feelings for you?" "What?" Louise asked. "It's a simple question. Has Roger shown he cares about you?" I clarified. She turned red. "Yes. Has he been close to you?" Her head shot up, glaring at me. "Cam, that's none of your—" Then she looked down again. "Yes." I nodded. "Have you been close with him at all?" She stayed silent when I asked, but I saw her nod. "Well, that says it all, doesn't it?" I tried to keep my frustration in check. My wife stopped paying attention to me, pushing me away while getting closer to another man. So I guess that's it. "We're finished here," I said, walking out to the back deck and closing the door firmly. I sat down at our back table, feeling angry. After a long day at work, I wanted to be with my wife, and now she was sharing her secret that hurt me deeply. About 5 minutes later, Louise came through the door. Louise tried to be gentle. "Cam, I love you, but I need to do this. I felt trapped for a long time. Roger has been there for me. It will only be for a short time. You'll see." I kept looking at the yard, not turning to her. "No, Louise, you don't understand. You should have come to me. I was supposed to be your closest friend and partner, but you picked someone else and didn't give me a chance to help you. I don't know if I can trust you again." She stayed still. "Cameron," she said softly but firmly, "you can't just leave. Roger told me that if you do, I can take everything from you, half of your business, the house, the kids. It will be easy to turn them against you." Her voice became more powerful as she moved closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. I turned to her, feeling a mix of emotions as I pulled away from her touch. "You would do that to someone you say you love?" You would hurt me and think you can just walk away? I spoke with tension in my voice. I don't want to, my wife said, but Roger thinks I will win in court. You don't have many choices. I'm sure I will get through this and come back to you. You'll be fine. You're stronger than me. For the second time that night, I stood up suddenly, but this time I faced her, feeling a mix of love and anger. You are being selfish, I said. She took a step back. You say you love me, yet you act like I should just accept this. So you tell me I don't have a choice. Well, Louise, you've shown me that I don't know who you are anymore. You're not the person I married. It feels like something has changed in you. The woman I loved would never threaten to use our children against me. So who are you? Cam. She stumbled on her words. I let my anger fade, hoping to talk sense into her. Louise, if you love me as you say, then end this now. I don't know if our marriage can survive after this, but if you stop now and we go to counseling, I promise to try to understand what you're feeling. I will work on forgiving you. My betrayal? She whispered. I nodded. Counseling? She asked softly. Yes, Louise, counseling. You may not see it now, but our marriage is at a crucial point after what you just shared. Let's stop and get some help right away. I'll call Rose now and see if she can come over tonight. Louise had brought up Rose before. She knew that Rose was my first love. It never worked out between us, and we ended up with different partners. Still, Rose and her husband, Toby, were close friends of ours. I never thought Louise would use my past with Rose against me like this. Rose was also a counselor, and Toby became one of my best friends. We always understood each other well, sharing views on everything from faith to family. Our kids grew up together, too. Robbie, Rose, and Toby's son, and Carrie had been best friends since they were born. They had been a couple since 5th grade, and I was sure their relationship would keep growing. No, Cam, I don't want Rose involved in this, she said firmly. She sighed. Look, Cam, I know you're upset. You may think I don't get it, but I do. I started to speak, but she lifted her hand. Let me finish. You think I don't care about you, but I do. You're right. I shouldn't have said those things. But that doesn't change my feelings. I looked at her, trying to sort through the mix of emotions. I'll make you a deal. I know I've hurt you, but I'm going away this weekend with Roger. After that, I promise to go to counseling. It may take some time, but if it's important to you, we will go when I'm ready to return from my time with Roger. And what about the kids? I asked. What about them? Louise replied. How are we going to tell them we are splitting up? I asked seriously. Cameron, we're not. She paused and sighed. We're not splitting up. I've said it before. Roger and I will not last. I will come back. The kids will be fine. I find that hard to believe. I looked at her. And what about me? While you're away with Roger, what about my feelings? What do you mean? Louise hesitated. I need some care. I feel like you've moved away from me. We haven't been close in a long time. I feel lost right now. So what am I supposed to do? She looked at me, seeming surprised. She hadn't thought about what I needed. I don't know. She looked down. Roger says I should focus on him right now. I felt a wave of disappointment and sadness. What about me? You're choosing to focus on him and ignoring how I feel? Cameron, that's not fair! I almost shouted, cutting her off. You think it's fair to ignore the bond we had for someone who isn't being honest? Louise took a step back. I picked up my glass and emptied it before throwing it against the concrete wall by the barbecue. It broke into pieces, and I felt a heavy sadness inside. I sat down in my chair, my shoulders drooping, and tears started to fall. Neither of us said anything for a few minutes until a loud car horn sounded from our driveway. I looked at Louise and saw a mix of emotions on her face for the first time. I turned back to the desk, feeling empty inside. Just go, I whispered. I wasn't sure if she heard me, but when I looked again, my wife was gone. I think I stayed still for about half an hour. The talk with Louise had hit me harder than I thought. My phone buzzing in my pocket finally got me moving. It was my daughter, Carrie. She was calling to say she forgot her bag of clothes for the weekend and was on her way home with Robbie to pick it up. Sorry, Dad. Mom's phone went to voicemail, so I thought I'd call you. She talked excitedly about the B&B she and Robbie were off to this weekend. I sniffed, trying to keep my feelings in check. It's okay, sweetie. Your mom isn't home right now. But I'll make sure your bag is at the door ready for you so you and Robbie can keep moving. She didn't answer right away. Dad? I sighed. Yes, sweetie? I tried to sound calm, but I didn't convince her. Who's Robbie? Carrie asked, worry in her voice. Oh, I meant Robbie, not Roger, just a mix-up. I couldn't believe I made a mistake like that while trying to change the topic. Carrie was quick to catch on, and I felt exposed. What's going on? She paused when I didn't answer. Come on, Dad, you're worrying me. It's nothing, Carrie, I'm just having a tough day. I had some issues at work, then your mother and I had a disagreement, so I'm feeling a bit emotional, I said. I didn't want to lie, but I also didn't want to burden her with everything. Dad, stop dodging the truth. You're hiding something. What did Mum do? She asked, her voice sharper. It really doesn't matter, sweetie. I'll be fine. You just caught me off guard. I'll have your bag ready for you. Don't let our problems spoil your weekend. Love you, Carrie. I ended the call quickly, feeling bad for not being honest. I went inside, splashed some water on my face, and then grabbed Carrie's bag from her room, placing it just inside the garage door where she would look for it. It wasn't the first time one of my girls had forgotten something. I grabbed a broom and started cleaning up the broken glass when Carrie burst through the back door. Are you okay, Dad? She asked, her face full of worry. It reminded me of the concerned looks Louise used to give me. Of course, sweetie, I put your bag in the usual spot, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Bending down, I swept the glass into a dustpan while Carrie watched. When I stood up, Robbie was also in the doorway, looking worried. I pulled out a chair and sat down with a sigh. Carrie sat across from me, taking my hands in hers. Dad, you don't seem okay. Mum called me back after I talked to you. I could tell she was in a car, and it sounded like someone else was with her. What's going on? I looked at my daughter, realizing she could tell something was wrong. Mum is with someone else, I said simply. No. Really? Both Carrie and Robbie stared at me. I nodded slowly. She gave me an ultimatum earlier and left with someone else before you called me, I admitted sadly. They stayed with me for the rest of the night. At some point, Rose and Toby came over. Robbie brought takeout Thai food and drinks. I slowly told all four of them about Louise's choice, and everyone was shocked. Daddy? Carrie asked. Does Mum not remember the agreement you both have? When Louise and I got married, I was just starting my printing business. My parents had given me money to help. Their lawyers created an agreement that included many terms. It said if either person was unfaithful, they would leave with only their clothes and get 15% of the shared belongings, while the house, cars, and kids would stay with the one who was hurt. The business was always off limits to Louise in any separation. I shook my head. I don't think your mother was thinking clearly, sweetie. Remember, she said it's not cheating if she mentioned it. Carrie shook her head. Daddy, there is no excuse for being unfaithful. It seems like she had already checked out emotionally for a while. Both Sarah and I noticed that things weren't quite right between you for weeks. We just couldn't figure it out. I nodded, and then a thought hit me. Oh my goodness, Sarah, I need to talk to her. I need to let her know everything will be okay. Carrie held my hands again. Daddy, please don't say that. It's not going to be okay. Mom has hurt something in you tonight, and I'm not sure if I can forgive her. She's still your mom, I replied, sounding more whiny than I meant to. Mother or not, there's no reason to do what she did to you, she said firmly, then squeezed my hand again, softening her voice. Sarah and I will be fine. I'll talk to her in the morning. She knew something was wrong, too. We ate, and even though I was feeling down, I found myself enjoying the delicious Thai food. After eating and chatting with Carrie, Robbie, Rose, and Toby, I felt much better. Can I talk to Cameron for a moment? Rose asked later as the conversation moved away from Louise. I felt myself pull back a little. The others took the hint and went inside. Rose sat in the chair that Carrie had just left. She noticed my expression and glanced toward the back door where the others went, then smiled at me. You have a wonderful daughter, Cameron, Rose said. I nodded, looking at Rose. Rose had striking red hair. She was my first love. We dated on and off during high school until we went to different colleges. Then she fell in love with Toby, and soon after I met Louise, and until now I had been very much in love with her. Rose and I had shared some important moments when we were young, but that never bothered Louise or Toby. It was part of our past that didn't affect anything. Rose and I were close, and we would never think of cheating on our spouses. The fact that our kids were dating brought our families even closer. Carrie and Robbie knew a bit about Rose and my past. We didn't keep it a secret. Now that they were both 18, we knew Carrie and Robbie were serious about each other, and we supported their relationship. Carrie did tell Louise and me that they had their first special moment together on Robbie's birthday. Rose lightly touched my foot with hers, bringing me back to the present. "How are you, Cam? Don't hold back. You know I can see through you," she said. I shook my head. "I don't know, Rose. I knew things were rough, but this—" I waved my hand in the air. "I still love her, Rose. I'm hurt by what she has done. I want to scream, I want to cry, but deep down, I still love her," I admitted sadly. Rose nodded, fully supportive. "How can you handle this, Cam?" she asked. I looked at her for a moment. "Rose, stop with the drama. I've known you too long for that." She smiled, glad to bring me back to reality. "To answer your question, I think separation might be necessary. Most likely we'll end up getting a divorce according to the prenup. I wanted her to stay, even after she told me about her betrayal. I suggested we get counseling, but all I got were threats about taking everything from me and turning my girls against me." Rose nodded in understanding. "Cam, you're right, and I can't be your counselor. I'm too close to both of you. But tomorrow, I'll help find you someone to talk to. Toby and I will be here for you. You know we care about you. I'm sure that Robbie and Toby are trying to comfort your daughter about her feelings for her mother. I don't think we've seen Carrie this upset since Candy Taylor asked Robbie to the school dance," she said with a laugh. I chuckled softly. "You're right. Thanks, Rose. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this." She brushed it off. "Don't worry, Cam. We're here for you. If it had been you in trouble, we would be doing the same for her." I replied, "Rose, I would never." She smiled. "Relax, Cam. I know. That's why I felt comfortable saying it. You and Toby are two of the most loyal people I know. If you two looked more alike, I might think you were brothers." Toby is a bit shorter than me, but very solid and strong, with blonde hair and blue eyes. I have messy brown hair. I'm tall and fit, but not as muscular as Toby. I think that's why I fell in love with him. His personality reminded me of you," she said, lost in thought for a moment. We both laughed. It was a familiar topic that had become comfortable, showing how close Rose and I have become. For the next hour, we talked about my feelings, mainly sadness, betrayal, anger, and a strange numbness that I couldn't explain. But Rose understood. Later, we went inside and found Robbie and Carrie cozy on the couch, while Toby watched a movie in another chair. "Hey, everyone," I greeted them. Carrie quickly came to my side and hugged me. "Are you okay, Daddy?" she asked, worried. I glanced at Rose, who smiled back. "No, sweetie, I'm not. But I'm so glad you all are here. It would be much harder without you," I said. She hugged me tighter. "Dad, Robbie and I are going to stay here tonight. We don't want you to be alone." "But Carrie, what about your weekend trip?" I questioned. Robbie reassured me. "Cameron, trust me, there is nowhere else we'd rather be right now. We can do the trip another time. I've already taken care of our reservation, so we can easily reschedule soon. Carrie is right. Given what has happened, I think you need us here." I couldn't argue, so we wrapped up the evening. Rose and Toby said goodbye, promising to bring breakfast in the morning. I told Carrie and Robbie goodnight, saying I'd take a shower and read in bed for a while to help me relax. "We'll get you some coffee in the morning, Dad. I know I won't sleep well tonight, and I can only imagine how you'll feel," she said. I gave her a sad smile, thanked her, and hugged her before heading to my room. I took a shower and changed out of my work clothes. As I walked back into the bedroom, I let out a sigh. The room was filled with reminders of Louise. To make things harder, she had left some clothes on the bed that she hadn't packed for her weekend. I tossed them onto the floor and into the closet, planning to box them up with her other things tomorrow. I got into bed and started reading one of the latest books in the Spellmonger series, a fantasy series I had enjoyed for years, when my phone beeped. For a second, I thought it might be Louise, but it was Toby checking in to say they were home and thinking of me. I quickly sent back a thank you with a thumbs-up emoji. He replied that they would see us around 9 tomorrow morning. Just as I was about to put my phone down, an idea popped into my head. I opened the Find My Phone app and sent a ping to Louise's phone. It showed her location a couple of hours away in the Blue Mountains, which made me sigh again. I took a screenshot of the ping as proof that she was not where she said she would be, and it made me think about our security system. We had a Swan security system that recorded both video and audio from cameras placed around the house, saving it all on a hard drive. There were 8 cameras outside. The front yard ones would email Louise and me if they picked up any movement. All the cameras recorded all the time until the hard drive filled up, at which point it started replacing older content. The drive could hold a week's worth of recordings, so I logged in to check the footage from the back patio camera from earlier that night. Sure enough, the camera showed the conversation Louise and I had when I walked outside. I also checked the front camera and saw a large man get out of a new BMW, greeting Louise before they drove away together. I now had clear evidence of her leaving, along with the ping from her phone showing she was not at home. I took out my laptop, logged into the Swan security system, and exported the videos into an email along with instructions for starting divorce proceedings. While I was trying to find the right words for my lawyer, I got a notification that Louise was calling. She must still have been awake with her friend after hearing the Find My Phone ping. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, I got a notification for a new message. I played it. Cameron, Roger, and I heard my phone ping. Don't rush into anything. Sooner or later, we will settle things. We can talk, and you can follow my lead. If you don't listen, Roger will make things hard for you, and I will take everything from you. I heard Louise's voice. Roger laughed in the background. Yes, little boy. Trust me, this won't last forever. If you tell anyone about this, I will make sure you regret it. You'll lose everything, your wife, your kids, your job, and any respect you think you have. Once Louise and I are done, she will come back to you. Just go along with it, and things will be fine. Louise and I need to have our time now. She was about to focus on me before you interrupted. That kind of attention is something you probably have never felt. When they hung up, I could hear them both laughing. I sat there shocked for a moment. Over the years, I had heard many rude comments, but the disrespect and boldness of that man made something snap inside me. I knew it was time to take action against them, not against myself. I revised the email, asking for divorce papers to be served to Louise at her workplace without delay. I also wanted to take legal action against Roger Fellworth. My quick search showed that there wasn't a law in Australia for alienation of affection, but I still wanted my lawyer to respond. I wanted them to face the results of their actions. I also wanted to hold Louise and Roger's workplace responsible for the damage their actions had done to my own job, which had caused me great stress. I understood that the lawsuits likely wouldn't get very far, but filing them, along with the divorce and enforcing the prenuptial agreement, would send a clear message about their arrogance. As I hit send, I knew I didn't have Roger's wife's details yet, but if I could find her, I planned to let her know what her husband was doing. I wish I could say that after sending the email, I slept well knowing I was doing something about the situation, but that would not be true. I tossed and turned all night, even hearing Carrie and Robbie wake up before I fell asleep. I listened as Robbie seemed to go to his car for the promised coffee. I quickly put on some pants and a shirt and went to the kitchen. When I entered the room, Carrie saw me and gave me a big hug, asking if I had slept. I shook my head. Me neither, she said. I tried, but I just couldn't. I don't understand how Mum could do this to you, she said. It's not just you, it's us too. We talked about her studies for a while, trying to avoid the painful topic until Robbie came back with 3 much-needed large coffees. I took a sip of the delicious drink. I had always loved cappuccino, and the chocolate on top made it taste even better. Carrie and I both sighed in relief. Robbie laughed. You two are just alike. Then he became serious. So no sleep for you, huh? No, not really. I was busy emailing my company lawyer when I got a voicemail from Louise after tracking my phone. I spent the next 10 minutes explaining how I prepared a divorce package and planned to take action against Roger and his workplace after listening to the voicemail from Louise and Roger. I could see Carrie trying to hold back tears as she heard the message. "That woman is not my mother," she said softly, using her coffee napkin to dab her eyes. "My mother could never be so cold as to insult my father or let another man disrespect him." Robbie and I completely agreed with her. Around 10 in the morning, we started to wonder where Rose and Toby were. They had said they would bring breakfast around 9, so we were getting worried an hour later. Robbie first called his mother's phone, then his father's. When he couldn't reach them, I tried too. I called Mama's house, the cafe we always visited. The owner, Josie, an older lady in her 60s whom we all knew well, confirmed that Rose and Toby had picked up breakfast around 8:30 on their way to my place. When I hung up, my worry grew. Just as I was about to grab my keys and head out to search for them, Robbie's phone rang. He answered, but within a minute he looked frozen in shock. I took the phone from him. "Hello? This is Cameron Other. I'm Robbie's girlfriend's father. Who am I speaking to?" I asked. "Mr. Other, this is Police Constable Colleen Sharp. I have some sad news about Robert's parents." I inhaled sharply, looking at Robbie, who seemed in disbelief. Carrie had her arm around him, gazing at me with concern. I had to ask, "Are Rose and Toby all right, Constable?" There was a pause. "Mr. Other, is Robert unable to talk right now?" I confirmed he couldn't. "Can you get Robert to allow me to talk with you about this matter?" I got Robbie to say yes. The officer took a breath before continuing. "Around 8:45 this morning, Rose and Toby's car was in a serious accident. Their car was badly damaged. I'm sorry to say that Mrs. Getting is currently in surgery. Sadly, Mr. Getting did not survive." I felt as if my face had turned as pale as Robbie's. I sank to the ground at the news about Toby's passing and Rose's serious condition. I cleared my throat. "Which hospital?" I asked, my voice shaky. Carrie, looking anxious, named a hospital. I could see she was close to tears, sensing that something was very wrong. I swallowed hard. I needed to stay strong. "They are both at Royal North Shore Hospital. Can I assume that you and Robert will be there soon?" she asked, a hint of sadness in her voice. She was handling her job well, but I could tell the situation was affecting her. "Yes," I responded, trying to remember all the details about where to go and what to say when we arrived. In just 5 minutes, the three of us left the house. I followed the speed limit, even though I wanted to drive faster. We got to the hospital's trauma unit in half an hour. The nurses were working hard to keep us calm. We kept asking about Rose's condition, where Toby was, and many other questions. PC Sharp came in and introduced herself. We talked for about 20 minutes. Once more, Robbie allowed me to act on his behalf while she shared what had happened. Rose and Toby were driving when a runaway truck hit their car hard. Toby took most of the force from the crash, pushing his side into the passenger area. Sadly, he did not make it to the hospital due to serious injuries, including a bad head injury and several others on his body. There were some additional issues, but I won't go into details about them. Rose was also in very bad shape. She had a small head injury, several cuts, and 2 broken legs. The worst part was that she lost her left hand and part of her arm in the accident. The surgical team worked hard to treat her injuries. She lost a lot of blood, but luckily, the emergency responders were able to stabilize her in time to prevent more problems. The rest of the day passed in a blur of talks and phone calls. After the initial shock, Robbie stayed with me as we waited for news about Rose and began calling family members. We first contacted his grandparents, then Toby's brother in Brisbane, and then Rose's brother. When the officials came, both Carrie and I helped Robbie with the arrangements following his father's death. Carrie called Sarah, and within an hour she arrived at the hospital to support Robbie as they grieved together. After a bit, she looked at us with concern. "Where's Mom?" she asked, not quite understanding what was happening. Carrie and I exchanged looks. "She won't be coming," Carrie replied, a hint of bitterness in her voice. Sarah turned to Carrie and then to me, confusion on her face. "I think this is about Roger, isn't it?" my youngest daughter asked quietly. To say we were all overwhelmed by the day's events would be an understatement. "Sarah, do you know anything about your mom and Roger?" I asked gently. Sarah nodded, tears starting to fall. "I saw Mom bring home some new items a couple of weeks ago. I thought the items might be for you, Dad." Her shoulders drooped. After a bit of asking, She shared that when she had asked her mother about them, her mom got upset and said they were for a date with someone named Roger, and there was no chance you would see them. "Sarah, why didn't you tell us earlier?" Carrie's voice showed her frustration. Sarah looked sad, her eyes almost on the ground. "I don't know. She hesitated, looking at Carrie for understanding. "We've talked about how Mom and Dad have been distant lately. I didn't know what to do, so I stayed away from home as much as I could after I learned something I didn't want to know. I didn't want to face Mom," she said, looking at me. "Or you. I'm sorry, Dad." I pulled her into a hug. "It's okay, sweetheart. I wish you would have said something. I didn't know until last night, but it's all right." She started to cry. "I'm so sorry, Dad. If I had said something, maybe Auntie Rose and Uncle Toby." She trailed off, overwhelmed with emotions. We finally left later that evening to take showers and change clothes. I took Carrie and Sarah home. We got ourselves sorted out, and then Carrie drove back to the hospital with Sarah while I followed them. I think it was around 4 in the morning on Sunday when they brought Rose out of surgery. She was in critical condition but still alive. She would need to stay in the intensive care unit for a few days. They wanted to make sure she woke up and that everything was okay before deciding what to do next. Even in his sorrow, Robbie was kind to the doctors and asked to meet the surgical team who had worked hard to save his mother's life. I felt proud of my daughter's boyfriend, and at that moment I hoped that one day I could call him my son-in-law. We spent the rest of the day at the hospital. I had grabbed my laptop and phone chargers at home and got confirmation that papers had been prepared to serve to Louise, Roger, and their workplace on Monday morning. I was thankful to have a good lawyer. I also contacted my managers at work to let them know I needed time off for a family situation. I didn't share the whole story, but they understood and would handle things while I was away. One positive note was that one of my support team had fixed the remaining issues with the machine that broke down on Friday. That afternoon, we started planning Toby's funeral with Robbie. He left a message with their family lawyer to get advice, just in case. It wouldn't be needed as long as Rose recovered, but Robbie wanted to be ready. We talked about the funeral for a few hours, and later in the afternoon, Edwina, Rose's mother, joined us. She was an older woman in her early 70s, still as sharp as ever. She hugged her grandson and then gave me a warm hug, too. Edwina had always treated me like family. She cared for Toby and often joked about me being the one who got away from her daughter. She let us know that Camilla, Toby's mother, would visit later in the week once she found someone to drive her from her retirement home. We talked easily for the afternoon, Edwina sitting with us in the hospital waiting room as we made plans. I wondered if the staff would ask us to move. However, when I asked a nurse if we needed to go, she shook her head. "No, unfortunately, this happens more often than you think. But as long as it's not too busy, you can stay. We understand the sadness you are feeling right now. I know you all want to be near Mrs. Getting while you wait for her to wake up." I smiled at her reply and thanked her. Time flew by as we chatted and shared memories. Louise came up briefly, and once Carrie told Edwina about her, I noticed a scowl on Edwina's face when no one was looking. It was around 8 o'clock on Sunday evening when I picked up a call on my phone without checking. All our phones had been ringing like mad as news about Toby's passing and Rose's injuries spread. "Hello, Cameron here," I said, watching Robbie with an arm around Carrie, smiling as they exchanged gentle looks. In their sadness, they were finding comfort in each other. "That's not how to greet your wife," I heard Louise scold me over the phone. "I told you not to cause any trouble, or you would regret it. Roger is serious and will make things hard for you if you've said anything to anyone. Where are you, Cameron? You were supposed to be home when I got here?" I wasn't sure what had changed with Louise over the weekend, but whatever doubt or regret I sensed on Friday night was gone, replaced by the harsh tone coming through the phone. "Louise," I said, frustration clear in my voice. All conversation around me stopped as everyone turned to look at me. "That's right, you big oaf. Where are you and where are the girls? If you told them anything, you know I would turn them against you. You better get home now, or you will be sorry." I hung up mid-sentence. I wasn't interested in her threats. Tomorrow, Louise would find out that her carefully made plans were about to fall apart. "The situation just got worse," I said with a shrug. "We could hear her, Dad. Sarah said quietly. I don't know why you answered the call in the first place. I had spent a few hours today talking one-on-one with my youngest daughter. She had said sorry many times for not speaking up, but when she learned how her mother had deceived everyone, she felt as upset with her mother as Carrie did. Dad, when the divorce happens, I want to live with you, okay? Sarah told me suddenly during our earlier talk. Of course, sweet girl, of course, I said as I hugged her. Back to the moment, I looked at Sarah and smiled. It was a reflex. I answered the call without thinking. It just took me a second to collect my thoughts. My phone rang again, and of course, it was Louise. For the next 10 minutes, she kept trying to reach me. Then she tried calling the girls. Half an hour later, Carrie was fed up. What? She said sharply as she picked up the phone. Louise was scolding our oldest child for her tone. Mom, please stop. I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm with my family, including my sister and dad. We're in mourning, and we don't need you interrupting our grief. I could hear Louise's raised voice on the other end, talking harshly, which surprised me. It seemed she thought Carrie was upset about their relationship instead of what was really going on. I realized Louise didn't know what had happened. Louise went on for a moment before Carrie cut in. Mom, I don't want to hear another lecture from you. Just so you know, yes, Dad has told us everything too. I don't want to stay in the same house as you. Your choices have hurt our family a lot. You've lost our respect. She paused, clearly listening to her mother. Yes, Sarah and I both know what happened. Dad is kind because he has forgiven you, but right now, we feel very different. So please pack a bag, Mom, because we don't want you there when we come home. She paused again to listen. No, Mom, I'm not sharing where we are or our plans to return. Why don't you reach out to someone else for help? She took a brief pause. What? You can't because he's busy? That's too bad, Mom. Louise started to respond. Sorry, Mom, I think they're calling for our flight. I'll talk to you later. And then she hung up. She looked at us, then pointed to her phone. Wrong number, Carrie said simply. Despite the seriousness of everything, everyone laughed a bit. Even the nurses at the station nearby. Edwina had gone home for the night, but promised to come back early in the morning. Meanwhile, Sarah and I were getting ready to leave for a few hours. Carrie and Robbie would stay longer, and then Sarah and I would return around midnight, switching places to give them some rest. As we were getting ready, a nurse approached. She's awake, she said with excitement. We all smiled, our nervous laughter filling the room. Then we asked about Rose's condition. A doctor is checking her over right now. She is really out of it, but she is awake, so you can all see her briefly. Over the next hour, we took turns visiting Rose. She was almost completely wrapped in medical coverings, and there were wires connected to different machines. Her head had bandages on it, but the most concerning part was where her left forearm used to be. Hey there, Petal, I said, using my nickname for Rose. When we first met, I called her my Rose Petal. If anyone other than me called her that, they always got a sharp response from her. You really scared us, but it's good to see you're getting better. She couldn't speak yet because of a breathing tube, and she was still very sleepy from what I imagined were strong medications. But her eyes asked the question I didn't want to answer. I shook my head gently, and she understood. A single tear fell from her left eye, quickly absorbed by the bandages. I couldn't touch her, so for the rest of my visit I sat with her, quietly saying how proud I was of her, how she was my family, and that we would all get better together. I felt worn out when I left the room. A nurse handed me a tissue as I walked out. I had been crying, but I hadn't even realized it. I thanked her and then went back to the lounge. Half an hour later, Sarah and I hugged Carrie and Robbie before heading home. Sarah and I were so tired. We only had time for about 3 hours of sleep before returning to the hospital to give Carrie and Robbie a break. Now that Rose was awake, we all felt some relief. We smiled while driving, talking about sleep and how happy we were that Rose was awake, but our smiles disappeared when we pulled into our street. There was a strange BMW X5 in our driveway. Wow, we both said at the same time. I noticed the front lights were on, so I drove past and made a U-turn, parking outside our house. We saw the curtains move, but no one came to the door. Should we go in or just leave? Sarah asked me. I shrugged and sighed. We need to go in. I'm tired, and I don't think it's safe for me to drive much longer without a break or some caffeine. So I suggest we go in. You can go to your room, close the door, and try to ignore what I think will be a tough conversation. Are you sure, Dad? I can stay with you. I smiled. Sarah avoided confrontations, which was why she hadn't said much to me. But her willingness to face her mother with me showed how upset she was. I took out my phone to record. Sarah looked at me and did the same with her phone. We got out of the car and walked up the path to the front door. It was unlocked, and we walked straight in. I gave her many reasons to think about her choices. He smiled with satisfaction as I glanced at my broken phone on the floor. Louise suddenly decided to join in. I didn't know what had changed her mind, but she spoke in a way that made it clear we were no longer united. Cameron, it's true. Roger is better than you. And now that you've talked to the girls, it's going to be hard for you. I wish you hadn't said anything because now Roger and I will make things difficult for you. Louise, what are you? I didn't have time to finish my thought. I looked at Louise just as Roger swung a punch at me. I fell to the ground, trying to lessen the pain, but it still hurt. What the heck, man? You hit me in my own home, I said, rubbing where he punched me. So what? Louise will back anything I do to you. I could really hurt you, and she would say that you started it, he said with a sneer. Don't you get it? I'm a lawyer. I control what people believe. You may think you're important in your work, but people like me bring in the money that keeps everything running. He started laughing. I take what I want, and nobody can stop me. I looked at Louise from the floor. Louise, is this true? Are you really going to support him? I asked as I got back up. Roger stood ready for another fight, but when I looked at Louise, he relaxed a little. She seemed firm. I'm sorry, Cameron, but yes, I will support Roger. Even if it goes too far, you just can't compete with him. I stared at her, confused by how someone could be so swayed by him. I sighed. Well then, dear wife, there's nothing more to say. Both of you need to leave now, or I will respond in a way you won't like. Roger, feeling strong from his earlier hit, underestimated me. He tried to come at me again, but I was prepared. He was bigger, but his size didn't mean he was stronger. I might not be as large, but years of working with heavy equipment had made me solid, and I had some experience from past situations. Roger rushed at me, and I moved aside knowing he shouldn't attack here. I tripped him, and he fell into a coffee table, but he got up quickly. Sarah came out of her room, alarmed by the noise, and yelled for him to leave her dad alone. Louise tried to quiet her by grabbing her, but Sarah screamed, trying to pull away and get to me. Roger thought he could use the distraction to come at me again. I stepped forward to face him, throwing a quick jab that stopped him in his tracks. He stood there surprised and confused before he fell to the ground. He looked up at me, not fully understanding what had just happened. Sarah, please look away, I said softly. Once she was turned the other way, I delivered a swift kick that left him struggling to catch his breath. When he groaned, Sarah turned around to look back. Sweetie, can you please call emergency services and tell them your dad was attacked and that I protected both of us? Also, let them know we have a recording of what happened and need both the police and an ambulance here quickly, I said. Sarah had managed to break free from Louise and rushed back to her room, shutting the door firmly. Good girl. I leaned in to speak quietly to Roger, keeping my eyes on Louise. Listen, you thought I would back down, but now you're on the floor in pain, and soon you'll face the results of your actions. You might think you're strong, but I just changed everything. I let him drop to the ground as I released my grip. What have you done? Louise shouted as she rushed to him. Cameron, what have you done? I shrugged, looking at the woman I used to care deeply for but now felt indifferent towards. It doesn't matter, Louise. You didn't care to check on me or our daughters before you attacked. You didn't ask Sarah how she felt or where we had been. You just followed your partner's lead. She stared at me, huddled over her friend. Breaking the silence, I said, Not going to ask? Let me explain. Because you chose to leave for the weekend, our daughter and her boyfriend came to see me, sensing that something was wrong even when I tried to hide it. Soon enough, Rose and Toby came too. Oh, Cameron, you didn't, she complained. No, I didn't. Carrie and Robbie did. They're smart and knew I needed support, I replied. They came to be there for me, unlike you, and then went home later that night, promising to bring breakfast Saturday morning while we figured out what to do about you and Roger. I gestured toward Roger, who was still groaning on the floor. "Anyway," I said, stretching the word out, realizing I was approaching the difficult part. My voice lowered. "Rose and Toby were on their way here with breakfast from Mama's when they got into a terrible accident. Toby didn't survive, and Rose is in critical condition at the hospital. It's been all over the news, so if you and your companion here had paid attention or even asked around, you would know that because of you, one of our friends is gone, and another is fighting for their life." I let that hang in the air, but after a moment, Louise had the audacity to reply. "It's not my fault, Cameron. We told you to stay quiet. If you had kept your mouth shut, they'd still be alive. It's your fault they're gone, not mine." "No, it's not. It's yours," our daughter said, standing in the doorway. She looked at me. "The police and ambulance are coming." Then she focused on her mother. "I don't know who you are, but you are not my mother. It's your fault that Uncle Toby is gone, not Dad's. If you hadn't made those choices, this would never have happened." She looked down at her hands, and I feel guilty too. Maybe if I had talked to Dad, he could have stopped this. "Sarah," I began. "No, Dad. I should have said something, but she is to blame," she said, pointing at her mother. Then she went back to her room, and Louise and I just stared at each other. We could hear sirens in the distance. No one spoke as 2 police cars pulled up, and chaos unfolded. Louise tried to explain that I had hurt Roger, the person lying on the ground. When asked if this was her husband, she hesitated, stating that I was involved but that I had hurt Roger. I shared my side of the story when the ambulance arrived, taking Roger away on a stretcher. The ambulance left, and I felt the police were getting closer to arresting me since I was part of the incident, while my wife kept insisting that I was responsible when Sarah returned to the room. "I'm sorry, officer," she said to the person asking questions, "but I have a recording that backs up everything Dad said. It shows that the man threatened my father and that my mother would mislead to protect him." She handed the officer a USB drive. "What? How did you record it?" Louise asked, not realizing the police were still there, listening. "Mom, Dad thought something might happen, so when I went to my room, I set my phone by the door to capture everything." She looked at the officer. "I'm sorry to say this, but I don't feel safe with Mom. Please don't make me stay with her. She always sides with that man. I heard him hurt Dad at least once." "I'm scared," Sarah said, hugging me and looking at her mother with anger. After that, it was clear. Sarah, being a minor, had proof and shared her statement against Louise, so my wife was taken away for the night. As Louise left, she shot me a glare but did not say a word. We were too tired to sleep after everything that had happened, so we showered and changed. Then I made a coffee and drove back to the hospital. When we entered Rose's room, Carrie and Robbie were sitting in chairs, leaning on each other. When Carrie saw my face, she gasped. "What happened, Dad?" she asked, noticing the bruise forming on my cheek. We spent a few minutes explaining the visit from her mother and Roger. I made it clear that I would not accept any disrespectful behavior. Just then we heard Rose make a small sound. She was awake and looking at me with sadness. "Rose," I said, "I'm so sorry, Petal. If I had known you were awake." I stopped, realizing I had mentioned part of Toby's situation in front of her. She understood when I mentioned what happened before, but I should have been more considerate. Her right arm moved a little. Like the rest of her body, it was covered in bandages, and at least one of her fingers was hurt. She tried to lift her hand, and I quickly reached for it, trying to hold it gently. "Are you okay, Rose? Can I get you anything? Do you need a nurse?" I asked. Then I added, 1 blink for yes and 2 blinks for no. She blinked twice, then 3 times slowly, but curled her unhurt fingers around my hand. I stayed like that for the rest of the night. The next few weeks went by fast. Louise's parents got her out of trouble the next day, but then called me names until Carrie stepped in. When Louise returned to work a few days later, she was served divorce papers, which also affected the company owner. Because of this, Louise was put on leave without pay, waiting for a review, and was living in her parents' spare room by the end of the day. She came back to the house while Carrie and Robbie were resting. They watched her closely as she packed a few things before leaving with her parents. Carrie hugged her grandparents but made it clear that her mother would no longer be welcome in their home. After what happened with Roger and me, Carrie not only saw her mother differently but also felt that Louise had a part in the accident. It took almost a week before the medical team felt okay to remove Rose's breathing tube, even though she was awake. When they did, her first weak words were for me. "Cameron, are you all right?" I paused. "Rose, why do you ask that?" She smiled sadly. "It's okay, honey. I knew about Toby before you told me. I hoped he would be fine, but right after the accident, we were shocked but aware. We showed we cared for each other, but somehow he sensed he wouldn't make it, while I would." Tears filled her eyes. "After I woke up the first time, I was so confused, but I remember your eyes telling me he was gone." I sat down in the chair next to the bed, holding her injured hand, still intact, unlike her missing left hand. She leaned in and whispered softly, even though we were alone. "Last night I had a dream where Toby came to me and he looked perfect. He wasn't hurt at all." She smiled. "He told me it was okay, that it was his time, and the accident was nobody's fault, not even Louise's." I looked at her as her smile faded a bit. "I know, right? Just like Toby, he wouldn't blame anyone. He also said he loved me, but now it's my turn to take care of you. Cameron, he truly cared for you like a brother and was so worried about you." I looked back at her and said, "Rose, you're the one who needs looking after. Have you not realized that you're missing a hand?" She laughed, holding up her arm. "I really am missing something, aren't I?" I couldn't help but smile. "I guess it's my job now to help you when you need it," I joked. She groaned, but then laughed lightly. "I'm serious, Cam. I miss Toby a lot, but after that dream I feel better, and he made me promise to take care of you." I raised my hands playfully, and she giggled. "All right, you win. You can take care of me." Rose looked pleased, "But only after you're better. Until then, I'll take care of you." The following months went by slowly compared to those first 2 weeks. If I wasn't at work, I was at the hospital with Rose. If I wasn't there, I was packing up our home. The girls and I decided to sell the house and move. I found a nice place just outside of Crow's Nest in northern Sydney for a good price, and we got a fair deal on our old home. The new house was smaller but close to transport and the medical center. It had 3 bedrooms and a little study area, and if you stood on your tiptoes in the main bedroom, you could see Sydney Harbor in the distance. My divorce from Louise was progressing. The girls did not want to talk to their mother, and the few times they did, it didn't go well. Sarah, who used to be easygoing, became quite upset whenever Louise was mentioned. Carrie moved in with Robbie over the last month, which I didn't mind, although Louise often criticized me for it, calling me names. She struggled to adjust to living in her parents' house in a spare room. They reached out a couple of times to ask if I could settle things with Louise, but after I shared what happened that night involving Roger and Louise, they apologized and stopped trying to fix our issues. While Louise's life was getting worse, Roger's situation had also deteriorated. He had to have a medical procedure that left him in a tough place. He named me in a lawsuit, but the police advised him against it since he was mostly to blame for what happened. After everything was reviewed, his workplace let him go to protect their reputation, probably hoping to convince me to drop my case against them. However, my lawyer was already pushing for a settlement. Roger's wife somehow got a copy of the recording. I wasn't sure how she found it, but I noticed some knowing looks from Sarah at times. One evening, I received a call from Miranda Fellworth, and we talked for over an hour, sharing our experiences. She had suspected Roger of being unfaithful many times, but this was the first solid proof she had. It turned out that a lot of the Fellworth family wealth came from a trust set up by Miranda's grandparents, which helped pay for Roger's law school years ago. Since he was not included in that trust, she told me he wouldn't receive any of that money. They had kids, and one of them wanted to be a lawyer, but Miranda worried that this dream might change once he found out about his father's actions. Roger was living in a cheap hotel using a credit card that was almost maxed out, and he was having a tough time finding a new job. I honestly hoped it stayed that way. Rose was slowly getting better, and a month after the accident, she was allowed to leave the hospital for a short time to say goodbye to Toby. It was a mix of emotions. While there was sadness in the air, Rose often laughed and smiled as she talked with those around her, sharing memories. Even when tears fell, she somehow brightened the spirits of those close to her. Physically, Rose's legs were still in casts, and she had several bandages, including one on her head and around her tightly wrapped left arm. She had a scar that was still red, stretching from just above her left eyebrow, over her nose, and down her right cheek. The doctors said they could fix it with surgery later if it didn't heal as they hoped. At the funeral, I made sure to be the one pushing Rose's wheelchair as she greeted everyone. Her nurse smiled and stayed close, allowing me to help her. A month after the funeral, I was sitting in Rose's hospital room, working on some paperwork when I felt her looking at me. I noticed the hairs on my neck stand up as I put down the invoice. "What's wrong, Petal? Do you need something?" I asked, turning to her. When I looked, I was taken aback. Rose was staring at me, tears streaming down her face. "Cameron, she tried to say. I quickly moved closer and wrapped my arms around her as she cried. Other than a slightly fast heartbeat, her monitors showed she was okay. The hospital staff had warned me that this could happen. Since she woke up, she was more worried about others than herself. "Shh, Rose, it will all be okay. I'm here. You won't have to face this alone, you know that?" I said, trying to comfort her. She cried harder, nodding and holding me with her good arm, now free from bandages. "I know, Cameron. I just miss him so much," she said, looking up at me with sad eyes. "I do too, Rose. Trust me, I do. Toby was my best friend. I miss him every day, if it weren't for you and Toby." She held on tighter. "Will it get better?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I answered softly. "I want to believe it will. Toby is gone, but you are still here, and we have our children. That has to matter for something." We sat in silence for a moment, and I felt her begin to relax. "Thanks, Cam. I'm not sure I could stay strong without you. You're getting smarter as you get older. You know that." She giggled softly. I ran my fingers through her thick, curly red hair and leaned in, resting my forehead against hers. "Thanks, Rose. Without Toby or Louise, I realize I really need a best friend. Would you want to be that person?" I asked. Surprisingly, Rose gave me a gentle kiss on the cheek. I felt my heart stir with feelings I didn't expect to have for her again, a deeper connection growing between us. Then I realized what was happening and pulled back. "Rose, I'm sorry. You are my best friend, my oldest friend, and I care for you a lot. But I don't know. We're still sad about Toby." She sighed and snuggled closer. Without thinking, I wrapped my arm around her while we sat on her hospital bed. "I know, Cam. I understand. But I feel something that's never gone away since high school," she said. That night, I fell into a restless sleep and tossed and turned for a long time until I finally entered a dream. The dream took place in a big bar I had never seen before. It was spacious, with tables everywhere and lots of people enjoying themselves. The tricky part was that everyone looked blurry. I said hi to a few as I walked by and they greeted me back, but they all stayed out of focus. Still, it felt like a nice dream. Just as I thought about going to the bar, I saw someone who stood out clearly. He was sitting alone at a table, and when I walked over, he turned to greet me. "Toby!" I shouted, rushing toward him, but stopped just before I reached him. He laughed. "It's great to see you, Cam. It's okay. Come over." We hugged, and then I held him back to look at him. He looked just like he did the night before the accident, and he caught me watching him, laughing again. "You look good, buddy," I said. "I know this is a dream, but it's so nice to see you." He smiled, and we sat at the table. There was a drink in front of me, and Toby had a pint. We shared a quiet moment as we sipped. "Ah," he sighed. "This is nice." He looked at me. "So how are you, Cam?" I felt a bit deflated, the dream feeling too real. "Not great, buddy," I replied to my friend in the dream. "The divorce from Louise is tough. The girls are always angry. I'm trying to help Rose as she recovers, but it's hard, and I feel overwhelmed." Toby nodded, understanding. "What about you and Rose?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I leaned back, thinking about Toby in this dream. He smiled, keeping his eyebrow raised. "What about us?" I asked. "Come on, Cam. We've been friends for more years than I can count. You're my best friend, and I know how you feel about Rose." I laughed softly. "Of course, Toby. She means a lot to me, just like you and Louise do. Without you two, she's become one of my closest friends. I want to see her happy again, I added. He sighed. I get it, Cam, but what about earlier today? You seemed so restless before you fell asleep. You can't say that didn't mean anything to you. Of course, my mind would create a dream where my best friend confronted me, making me feel guilty about my feelings for his wife. I looked at my friend and said, I know it was more than nothing, Toby. I care for her. I always have. He smiled at me, but I felt worried. But Toby, Rose was your wife and Louise was mine. We shared special moments together, but how can I act on these feelings? Cameron, he said seriously, I'm not here anymore. His tone was sad but certain. You two aren't doing anything wrong. Rose has a long life ahead of her. She needs someone who will love and support her like I did. You said yourself Louise is moving on from your life, and you do care for Rose. He looked at me for a moment, and it seemed like the real Toby had something important to share, not just a dream. Rose cares for you too, Cameron. She's hurting, but she's hoping you won't leave her. She holds you close to her heart and really values you. She may even love you deeply, since you've known each other for so long. I mean it. I was speechless. You know, he leaned in a bit. If Rose and I hadn't met when you two were apart, she might have come after you and wanted to marry you. What? I nearly choked on my drink. How do you know that? She told me. He smiled. I shook my head in disbelief. How could she have said that to you? You're just a dream my mind created to help me sort through everything. Rose never mentioned anything like that to me, so how would you know? Toby chuckled. Cam, look around this place. This isn't just a dream, and I'm not a made-up version of you, he said. I don't believe it, I replied. Cam, it's real. Let me prove it to you. He said, How? I asked, unsure. He held up 3 fingers. 3 ways, he said playfully. First, he said, raising his index finger. When you get to the hospital tomorrow, ask Rose what my last words to her were. I scoffed. I already know. You told each other you cared. Toby smiled, shaking his head. That's partly true, but after we realized I wouldn't make it, I found peace. Somehow, I knew Rose would be here the next day, and my last words were, Love Cameron for all your days. I started to reply, but Toby raised his hand and showed me 2 fingers this time. Second, tomorrow at the hospital, Louise will show up. It might not be a good sight. Toby, that can't be true. Third, he interrupted, holding up 3 fingers, my mom will bring you and Rose one of those tasty chicken salad sandwiches from the Asian sandwich shop on North Harbor. She will be wearing yellow sandals. I looked at my friend, who laughed at me again. Toby, how do you know this? This is a dream, and you're not here anymore, I said. He tapped his nose as if he was sharing a secret. Honestly, I can't tell you, he replied. It's a miracle that I got to meet you and Rose at all, but I was asked to join you, so here I am. I'm glad to have some time with you. I didn't fully believe him, but I was happy to see him too. So, if everything goes as you say, what should I do? Marry her? I asked. Toby laughed again. That's up to you, my friend, but if you marry Rose, you have my blessing. He grabbed his drink and pulled me toward a dartboard. That's something I couldn't say while I was alive. Just take care of her, Cam. Make me proud to be your best friend, no matter what you choose. For what felt like an hour, Toby and I played darts, enjoyed our drinks, and I think we even sang some songs. Other patrons joined us, though I couldn't remember them all clearly. There was one guy who seemed important in whatever was happening, but as we had a good time, the pub faded from view. My last memory was Toby leaning over me, thanking me for our friendship as we said goodbye. I woke up with tears on my face. I felt sad, but I was also happy to have that moment. I got to say goodbye this time. By the time I was dressed, I had mostly forgotten the dream. I stopped by the office to check in with my managers. Everyone knew I was spending a lot of time working from Rose's hospital room as well as getting ready to move in the next few weeks. My assistant had all my paperwork ready for the day, accepted the ones I worked on yesterday, then took me to a meeting room where I worked with my team for an hour before heading to the hospital. When I arrived around lunchtime, Rose smiled as I walked into her room. She had received some news from the doctors that although she still had a way to go, she would be able to go home in a few weeks. She had been feeling frustrated with the hospital bed lately. Although her bed was near a window, she wanted to leave the room. I was excited for her. Helping Rose settle at home would be really good for her. We were talking about her sleeping in her own bed when Toby's mother, Camilla, came in. I didn't know Camilla very well, unlike Rose's mother, Edwina, but we were friendly. She smiled as she entered the room. "Rose," she said kindly, "you look much better today, and Cameron, you look nice too. It's great that you're taking care of Rose. I know Toby would be proud of you." Camilla leaned to greet Rose, and I noticed her yellow sandals, which made me pause. Rose caught the change in my face. "Cam, what's wrong?" both Rose and Camilla asked, looking at me. "Is there something wrong with my shoes, Cam?" Camilla asked, looking concerned. "I bought them yesterday on sale." "No, sorry, Camilla," I replied quickly. "It was just a dream I had last night. Your shoes reminded me of it, that's all," I said, trying to move on. Rose continued to gaze at me for a moment while Camilla carried on. "Oh, I almost forgot. I brought you both lunch from that amazing Asian sandwich shop in North Harbor. Their chicken sandwiches are so good." She excitedly described how they make them with many different ingredients for just $6. As she talked about the chicken sandwiches, I found myself quietly repeating her words in my head. "Cam, are you okay?" Rose asked, looking worried. I glanced from Rose to Camilla, then down at the sandwiches she was unwrapping for us, and again at her yellow sandals. It was just a dream, I reminded myself, just a coincidence. I tried to explain my earlier reaction by saying I was tired. Camilla didn't know me well enough to question it, but Rose gave me a look that meant we would talk later. We enjoyed our lunch, and Camilla was right. They were delicious. Each bite was a tasty mix of chicken, lettuce, tomato, cheese, beetroot, pineapple, salt, pepper, and a great fruit relish, all between soft, yet crusty bread. After lunch, we talked about simple things, mainly the weather and plans to get Rose home. I started to relax as the tension from earlier faded when Louise walked in. Louise was in jeans and a blouse, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked good, maybe a bit slimmer than the last time I had seen her. Holding a bouquet of flowers and a wrapped gift, she entered confidently, as if nothing had changed in the past few months. "Oh, Rose, it's so nice to see you." "You look well, considering everything," Louise said. She looked around the room and then noticed me, her expression turning serious. "Cameron," she said firmly, "what are you doing here? It's your fault that Rose is here and Toby is gone. You don't belong here. Once our divorce is final, I'll make sure Rose never has to see you again." I stood up. Dark clouds seemed to gather around us. "Leave," a small voice pleaded. Everyone looked to the bed where Rose was crying, turning her face away from us. "It's okay, Rose. I'll get Cameron out of here," Louise said gently. "No, he stays. You go." Tears streamed down Rose's face. I took a step towards Louise. "Louise, you must go," I said firmly. "Please listen to me. You need to leave." Louise became angry. She threw the gift on the ground and we heard it break. Next, she flung the flowers against the wall. I stepped in front of Louise, blocking her view of Rose, who was still on the bed, with Camilla standing shocked in the background. "What's wrong with you, Cameron? What did you say to her? Rose knows it's your fault Toby is gone, right? Why would she blame me for what happened? You are the one who should leave." "I will take care of Rose. Stay by her side now that she is alone," she said, looking at Rose's hand. "I will make sure she gets all the help she needs." I shot back. "What makes you think you can just walk in here after 2 months and talk to Rose like that?" "Cameron." I pointed at the bed behind me. "Rose has lost her husband, and I've lost my best friend. The kids and I have been here every day since the accident. What about you?" I raised my voice. "Cameron," the voice called again. I pressed on. "I know why you're here. You lost your job, your parents don't want you around, and your daughters won't speak to you. So now you think you can use Rose for support until she gets tired of it." "Cameron," Rose called again, this time with urgency. My anger surged until I saw Rose's troubled face, and suddenly my anger faded. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "It's all right," Rose replied, glaring at Louise. "Louise, it's time for you to leave. Your behavior shows you aren't my friend. Don't blame Cameron for what happened to Toby. I'm ashamed to have thought of you as my friend, and I can't trust you anymore." Louise started to argue, but Rose raised her hand. "Stop it, Louise. You can't stay. I'm no longer your friend, and you're not welcome here. Do I need to call security to escort you out?" Rose said firmly. "Rose," Louise begged. "That's not fair. No one is hearing me." "No, Louise," Rose interrupted, her voice rising. "What's not fair is that my husband is gone, and I'm left to handle everything because of your actions with my closest friend." The room fell silent, with only distant sounds coming from the hallway. No one said anything, and I saw the familiar frown forming on Louise's face. It was a look she often wore when she didn't like what was happening around her. She glanced back and forth between Rose and me, her face showing a mix of feelings, but the frown stayed. When she looked at Rose one last time, her words came out with a sharp tone. "Well, I see how it is, Rose. Your husband hasn't even been laid to rest, and you're involved with my husband. That's really hypocritical," she shouted. "You can forget any help I was going to give you." Her voice faded as I took Louise by the arm and led her out of the room. I walked down the hall toward the nearest exit and pushed open the fire doors, relieved they didn't set off any alarms. Louise kept mumbling about her frustrations, throwing angry comments in Rose's direction. I knew security would arrive soon. I turned to Louise. "I don't know what's gotten into you. You've gone from being a loving wife and friend to someone so angry, and it needs to stop," I said firmly. Luckily, she calmed down a bit, pulling back. "Cameron," she said gently. "No, Louise, no more talking. You've pushed everyone away, your daughters, your friends. No one wants you around. You've become someone who only seems to care about herself." Just then, the doors swung open and 2 security guards walked in. They spotted us right away. "You okay there?" Peter, the bigger guard, asked. I waved him off. "It's fine, Peter. Louise just got upset when she saw Rose. She was just leaving, right, Louise?" I glanced at her. The guard stayed alert, not quite convinced. Louise looked between me and the guards, then shrugged. "Sure, I'll see you later, Cameron," she said. I shook my head. "I hope not." We watched as Louise walked away, and then the guards took me back to Rose's room, where Camilla and Rose were talking quietly. After checking that Rose was okay, the guards stepped out, and cleaners came in to tidy up. A little while later, Camilla also left, giving me a warm hug. "Thank you, Cameron. Take care of her. She needs you," Camilla whispered as she walked out. "Are you okay?" I asked Rose as I sat down on her bed, now just the 2 of us. I took her right hand in mine. She let out a small laugh. "Aren't you supposed to be asking me that?" I shrugged. It's been a strange day, but with Louise I felt, I don't know, more at ease. "But I guess it started with that dream I had last night." Rose looked up at me with interest. "A dream?" I nodded. "Yeah, I had trouble sleeping when I got home. I felt a little shy, realizing our earlier moment played a part in it. Anyway, I couldn't sleep, tossed and turned. But when I finally fell asleep, I dreamed about Toby in a pub." Rose nodded, as if she understood. "It was unusual. It felt like I was in a dream, and I found myself in a big pub. There were other people around, but they seemed blurry." "They were hard to see clearly," Rose said, finishing my thought. She looked deep into my eyes, and I was surprised. "Yes, they were blurry, except for Toby and another guy. I can't remember the other guy, but Toby was very clear. We talked, and he told me things that would happen today. So I knew it was more than a dream. Camilla's shoes, the sandwiches, Louise showing up. Toby said they would all happen." I met Rose's gaze, and her eyes showed me that she believed my words. "There was one more thing, wasn't there?" she asked softly. I nodded. How did she know? I looked at her, and a tear rolled down her cheek as she held my hand tightly. I hesitated to ask, worried but also curious about what it could mean. "Love Cameron for all your days," Rose said earnestly, looking into my eyes. I took a deep breath. "Rose?" I started. She nodded, and a new tear joined the first one on her cheek. "Those were the last words Toby said to me before we both were hurt in the car accident. They were the last words he spoke to me." More tears fell from my eyes. "How did you know?" I asked softly. She whispered, "When you mentioned Toby in the pub, I knew. He came to me there, telling me how brave I was, but that I should love you like I always have. He said you might be unable to ask something important when the time came, but that I should share our final words with you. We both broke down and hugged each other tightly. I held Rose close as the daylight faded, and we cried together. We shared memories of Toby, the friend, the husband, and the father. We grieved together, growing closer in our sadness. As evening settled in, the sounds of the hospital surrounded us. Rose made space for me on the small hospital bed, and we held each other as we slowly drifted off to sleep. Finally, I whispered, "I love you, Petal." She sniffed and replied, "I love you too, Cam." After that day, things slowly became easier for us. Rose sighed happily. I helped her get ready for the day, gently washing both of us before we went to bed, falling asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, we woke up to the smell of breakfast filling the air. Moments later, Carrie entered the room with her hand in front of her face. "Cover up, you two. I'm coming in," she said, lowering her hand and seeing that we were both covered with a sheet, grinning. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Wonderful, sweetie," Rose replied, yawning. "It feels so nice to sleep in a normal bed again." She glanced at me and added, "And to sleep beside someone you care about." Suddenly, she sat up, and the sheet slipped down a bit. "Is that the smell of coffee?" She suddenly realized she wasn't wearing her robe. "Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie." Carrie blushed a bit, but then laughed. "Rose, don't worry. You look wonderful." "I hope I look as good as you when I'm your age," she said playfully. "I know my dad appreciates how I look already." Rose and I felt our faces warm a little while she adjusted her cover. "You know what I mean." Carrie changed the subject. "Breakfast is ready. Sarah and Robbie are setting it up now. I was sent to see if you need any help getting ready since we figured you'd both be dressing." She smiled. "No, it's fine, sweetie. Rose and I can handle it. I'll help her down in a few minutes. Please close the door on your way out," I said. "Yes, Dad." She pretended to salute while stepping out, closing the door and giggling. They were all laughing when we got downstairs about 10 minutes later. The rest of the morning felt relaxed. Our new family felt right, as if it had always been that way. It was comfortable, like we had known each other forever. A few weeks later, my divorce from Louise was finalized, and we divided our assets. Thanks to the prenup, Louise received very little. She didn't get any of my business, which was worth quite a bit. The sale of our old house stayed with me, and even though I didn't have to, I gave her a check for $40,000, which was a little less than half of our savings combined. You might wonder why I did that when the prenup said I only had to give her about half that. Well, there were two reasons. First, Louise had damaged our relationship through her actions. I wanted to help her have enough money to move out from her parents' home and start fresh somewhere else. I heard she got offered a job in Wollongong, so I hoped the money would encourage her to move. Plus, my settlement from her previous work meant I wasn't struggling financially. Speaking of her former partner, it seemed Roger had gotten into some trouble. After losing his job, he turned to dealing drugs for someone else. In his first week, he sold to an undercover cop and is now facing 2 years in prison for his actions. It's hard to feel bad for someone like him. 6 months later, Rose and I got married. She looked amazing in her wedding dress, carrying a lovely bouquet. Despite her worries about how she looked and some tough days, having the kids and me around her helped a lot. Eventually, she changed jobs and used her psychology degree to help people who had lost limbs like she had. 2 years after we got married, she received an award from the government during the Australia Day celebrations for her work helping those with disabilities. In her speech, she thanked her family and friends and then invited me on stage, saying I was a big reason for her success because I supported her as she put her life back together after her accident. It was a busy time for us. Rose and I did many media interviews, appearing on morning shows to talk about the challenges people with disabilities face. My wife was truly inspiring. She always kept her worries to herself. Even when things were hard for her, she knew I was there for her. Our love grew stronger every day. Even though we sometimes disagreed, we always forgave each other and never went to bed upset. We didn't see Louise for about 3 years after the award ceremony. The occasion brought us together when Carrie and Robbie got married. They both graduated from university with good grades and had nice jobs, wanting to start a family young. Carrie was unsure about inviting her mother, as they had only talked twice in 3 years, and both times it was tense. However, I encouraged her to send an invitation to Louise, believing she should be part of this special moment. Carrie finally agreed, but wanted Louise to sit with regular guests instead of family. I accepted this arrangement, focusing on making sure Carrie wouldn't regret her mother's absence on her wedding day. In the end, there was a compromise. Louise sat with her elderly parents, who were pleased to keep a distance to maintain peace with their granddaughter and her new husband. As often happens with old partners at weddings, I found myself at the bar enjoying a drink. It wasn't on the bill, but since I was paying, I could order what I liked when Louise came over and leaned against the bar next to me. She asked for a glass of white wine and then turned to look at me. "I never said I was sorry, did I?" she said frankly, more making a statement than asking. "Nope," I replied, glancing out at the crowd. Rose, Sarah, and Carrie were across the room, laughing about something. I smiled at the sight. "But then again, I never thought you would," I added. Louise sighed. "You're right. I was in a bad place back then, all due to my own actions," she admitted. "Yep," I said, taking a sip of my drink. Rose glanced over and smiled, then frowned when she saw Louise beside me. I shook my head slightly and she nodded, knowing it was not a problem. "I saw you both at the Australia Day Awards and have been following what you've accomplished since," Louise said sadly. She watched my wife, her former friend, enjoying a moment with our daughters, knowing she could never share that with them again. "She doesn't like me. They all don't, do they?" Louise asked, glancing at them, then back at me, and then down into her wine glass. "Dislike is a strong word to use, Louise." After a pause, I added, "Actually, it's fitting, but feelings can change over time. In another 10 years, who knows, the girls might reach out to you." I saw Louise's shoulders slump. Then she looked at me. "What about you, Cameron? Do you dislike me?" my ex-wife asked. I shrugged. "Dislike, resent, take your pick." I heard the band start to tune their instruments in the background. I smiled to myself, knowing I would soon be dancing with my daughter. "But you convinced Carrie to invite me tonight. If you feel that way about me, why?" she asked. I turned to look at Louise. It was the first time I really saw her all night. She seemed smaller than before. Her cheeks were prominent and her eyes looked tired. I could see she was hurting. I studied her for a moment before answering. "Louise, no mother should miss her daughter's wedding, no matter what happened between us. But I didn't invite you here to ease your pain. I invited you so our daughter could start her marriage without worries." I paused, then raised my glass to a passing couple. "That's all, and if I never have to see you again, I'll consider myself lucky." With that, I walked away and joined my family for the wedding dances. I did hear a quiet voice say, "I'm sorry." Sadly for her, her actions did not win anyone's sympathy. For the rest of the night, we danced, ate, joked, and laughed, and I never saw Louise again. Later on, we heard from her parents that Louise had passed away a few years after that. It was right after Sarah got engaged to a doctor. At Sarah's engagement party, we learned that Louise had a serious medical problem that led to her death in a hospital bed with only her parents by her side. She didn't want anyone to tell us, which was sad. As for Rose and me, we kept each other grounded. When our grandkids came along, we cherished them together. We traveled the world, seeing amazing places and having incredible experiences. Despite our age slowing us down, we enjoyed playful moments when family caught us being silly. No one ever complained. They could see that Rose and I were in love, and that love didn't fade over the years. When I looked at my rose petal, I saw the girl I loved at 18, the woman I married in my 40s, and the joyful spirit of the grandmother nearing 82. I felt grateful for the love we shared, knowing it would last a lifetime. Hey, listeners of Temptress Cheating Tales!